The biotechnicians had been very thorough. I was already a little undersized, which meant that my height and build were suitable. I could pass for a big Earthling. And of course my face and hands and so on were all right, the Earthlings being a remarkably humanoid race. But the technicians had had to remodel my ears, blunting the tips and grafting on lobes, and cutting the muscles that move them. My crest had to go, and a scalp covered with revolting hair was now on the top of my skull. Finally, and most difficult, there had been the matter of skin color. It just wasn't possible to eliminate my natural coppery pigmentation, so they had injected a substance akin to melanin, together with a virus which would manufacture it in my body, the result being a leathery brown. I could pass for a member of the so-called white subspecies, one who had spent most of his life in the open. The mimicry was perfect. I hardly recognized the creature that looked out of the mirror. My lean, square, blunt-nosed face, gray eyes, and big hands were the same, or nearly so. But my black crest had been replaced with a shock of blonde hair. My ears were small and immobile, my skin a dull bronze, and several of Earth's languages were hypnotically implanted in my brain, together with a set of habits and reflexes making up a pseudo-personality which should be immune to any tests that the rebels could think of. I was Earthling, and the disguise was self-perpetuating. The hair grew, and the skin color was kept permanent by the artificial disease. The biotechnicians had told me that if I kept the disguise long enough till I began to age, say in a century or so, the hair would actually thin and turn white as it did with the natives. It was reassuring to think that once my job was over, I could be restored to normal. It would need another series of operations and as much time as the original transformation, but it would be as complete and scarless. I'd be human again. I put on the clothes they had furnished me, typical earthly garments, rough trousers and shirt of bleached plant fibers, jacket and heavy shoes of animal skin, a battered old hat of matted fur known as felt. There were objects in my pockets, the usual money and papers, a clasp knife, the pipe and tobacco I had trained myself to smoke and even to like. It all fitted into my character of a wandering outdoors sort of man, an educated atavist. I went out of the hospital with the long, swinging stride of one accustomed to walking great distances. The center was busy around me. Behind me, the hospital and laboratories occupied a fairly small building, some 80 stories of stone and steel and plastic. On either side loomed the great warehouses, military barracks, officers' apartments, civilian concessions, filled with the vigorous life of the starways. Behind the monstrous wall, a mile to my right, was the spaceport, and I knew that a troopship had just lately dropped gravs from Valgolia herself. The center swarmed with young recruits off duty, gaping at the sights, swaggering in their new uniforms. Their skins shone like polished copper in the blistering sunlight, and their crests were beginning to wilt a little. All Earth is not the tropical jungle most Valgolians think it is. Northern Europe is very pleasant, and Greenland is even a little on the cold side, but it gets hot enough at North American Center in midsummer to fry a she-lest. A cosmopolitan throng filled the walkways. Soldiers predominated, huge, shy Dakors, little slant-eyed Yangtusans, brawling Gorads, all the manhood of Valgolia. Then there were other races, blue-skinned Vegans, furry Proximons, completely non-humanoid Syrians and Antarians. They were here as traders, observers, tourists, whatever else of a non-military nature one can imagine. I made an absent-minded way through the crowds. A sudden crack on the side of my head, nearly bowling me over, brought me to awareness. I looked up into the arrogant face